Hurrah! It's episode 39 of the horror movie review show I Know What You Watched Last Week. And I thought it was 40 before we started, and I was thinking, we haven't done a special.
I quite
luckily we skipped
disagree. I think this is a special. And in fact, it's a special of the theme, which I think it's fair enough. We recently shouted out some people from the Monster Fam Discord, and we missed someone out who was a bit sad. And this one,
Someone
Frank,
got sad.
this one
Frank got sad.
is for you. Because this episode is all about Smut Week. That's what I've been thinking this whole time. Smut Week. And since Frank is a big poster in the Crafty Nipples mini side chat.
We have had quite a few smut weeks on I Know What You Watched Last Week, though.
Yeah, but I think this one in particular, all three of them had guaranteed nipple. Right?
Well, we'll recap, I guess. A nipple recap. So am I saying what we watched then?
Go for it.
Started off with the 2004
Movie.
Eternal. Then followed that with Succubus. And there are probably 6,000 movies named Succubus. So this one was from last year, 2024. And it's a Russian Kazakh production. So you know it's good. And finally, we finished off the week with Alone at Night, aka 18 and Over.
That would have been a much more easy to remember title for that movie than Alone at Night. I don't really get the Alone at Night
No, neither do I.
thing.
Because she wasn't alone.
I
But,
like any of it.
So what is your ranking of Smut Week?
It's kind of difficult.
Difficult.
Yeah, I didn't think any of them were very good, but I guess there were some saving graces. I probably put third place Alone at Night.
Mm-hmm.
Then second place Succubus.
Mm-hmm.
And Eternal gets the gold.
I've put third place Alone at Night. First and second were flip-flopping. For most of the time it was Eternal, and I think I've changed my mind now. Put Eternal second, Succubus takes first place for me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a titanic tussle between those two movies. So we've got to start with third place then. Alone at
Night.
Starring Paris Hilton, who does, a somewhat decent job of playing herself. Also Pammy as a sheriff, the one and only Pamela Anderson.
Woo.
And just some other people probably.
Yeah, there are definitely other people because neither of those are the lead.
But
they are what drew me in. I was like, a horror movie with Paris Hilton and Pamela Anderson.
You've been waiting for this.
I have to see
haven't
this.
You were so starstruck that when you saw the trailer, you didn't even take note of what the movie was called. So when I was skimming over it on the streaming, it was like, oh, what's this one? And I was like, come on.
The one I really wanted to watch.
Yeah. And not only that, the one you really wanted to watch, and didn't even know what the name of it was, but you've also put it last. So it sounds like it's a bit of a disappointment for you.
Yeah, it was dumb. It was so dumb.
What, when Paris Hilton plays the host of a reality TV show during lockdown called Trap House, which our lead character, we'll just call her Cam Girl, our Cam Girl's got away from the city because it's COVID, and she's gone out into the sticks.
Her younger sister drove her there, by the way.
She can't be contacted there, apparently. She'll be all alone.
Right, and her younger sister lays out the story as she's driving her up there that, she's trying to make some money doing this webcamming thing.
See, that got me there.
And
was she a cam girl before COVID, or was she like, right, I can't go to work anymore, I'm just going to cam for a week and rake in the money because we all know that's how it works?
Well, I don't know at what point during COVID this was supposed to be. So maybe it's later in COVID, but she
No,
basically...
it must be. I think it must be at the beginning because she's already trying to escape the city.
Well, she had been doing it for a while, which we know because it's the reason her boyfriend broke up with her.
Oh, jealousy in the house.
Yeah, and that makes sense because I think the first thing we see in this movie is actually him. We don't know who he is at this point, but
was it laid out to him that she was a cam girl before he committed to her?
I don't know.
Yeah, a lot missing from the context of these characters in this film.
I only know what the movie told us, and as I was saying, is that this guy who we don't know who he is, he like has a tantrum with a wig, and at the time I was like, what the hell is that? Like, what's? And then I realised that it's the wig his ex-girlfriend would wear during camming, and maybe he like stumbled upon her wig collection, was like, what's this? And it all came out, and then he broke up with her. But he then calls what I mean, I assume she's a hooker.
I just don't remember any of this, so
Played
please carry on.
Played by Winnie Harlow, I want to say her name is. She's like a famous model. So first acting I've seen her do, if you want to call it that. But yeah, they just have
Was she
like
better than Paris? Was she also playing? Let's not forget that Paris Hilton has previous experience. I'm pretty sure she's had her own movies
and reality TV shows.
Yeah, we're aware of that. I'm talking about like Hollywood movie starring Paris Hilton. Oh, of course, House of Wax. House of Wax was one of them.
But what I did like in this little intro storyline is that the guy in this situation, he gets a phone call, and it then turns out seemingly it's from inside the apartment, right? So he's like, oh shit, someone's come to do me harm. And good on him, his first thought is for the hooker. He's like, Lauren or whatever. She's like, Lauren, you okay? I was like, yeah, good. You didn't just try and save your own ass and leave her in danger.
I have no recollection of this scene whatsoever.
Anyway, transpires, right at the beginning, transpires that this intruder does off the guy and then leaves. And then we just get Winnie Harlow's character, who's been spending a long time checking herself out in the mirror whilst all this was going on in the bathroom. She comes out and finds the dead body, and yeah, the movie kicks off. Kicks off.
Well, yeah, I just forgot all about all of that and just waited till she actually got out into the sticks, and that's where the movie kicked off for me, if you want to say it kicked off at any point. And the one thing you need as a cam girl is either a laptop or a phone or a computer, and you also need Wi-Fi connection. But unfortunately, because she's left the city with the sticks, her Wi-Fi connection keeps going out, and not only the Wi-Fi but the entire power of the house. So she has to call the local Wi-Fi man, even though we're told originally that this is so far out that you're not going to be able to get a hold of anybody to fix anything on the whim. But he turns up after about 5 minutes.
And also, my favourite bit about this, when that guy turns up, is that she's just gotten off the phone with her sister and said how horny she is. She's like, oh, I'm so in need of a man. And then this hottie engineer guy turns up and starts laying it on thick.
The bearded man bun guy.
And this is just the first of a string of somewhat attractive men that just appear in this nowhere land.
Yeah, and again, she's supposed to be isolated and no one's supposed to come, and yet it's just like a miniature party every day. Men are coming out the woodwork. She's got the one house there. She's got that neighbour. The neighbour. Yeah. Studio's crashing. She's got that neighbour who comes round, and it wasn't obvious to me what he was up to the whole time. I don't know if it was obvious to you.
Yeah, we get the husband of the family next door coming over quite a few times, and I actually loved it. There was one point when she's gone out with him and they're both drunk or whatever, and she, as she has herself stated, needs to get some, so she tries to make a move on him, and he's like, no, it's too soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then they both just stand there for a bit looking out. Especially with what happens later in the movie, that moment makes zero sense.
We'll talk about stuff that made no sense. When Camgirl and Neighbour first meet, I believe he's in her house or on her porch or something, or they're both in the forest, doesn't matter. She runs into him, she thinks that he's like a threat or something.
No, you're thinking of a different character now. So it was a bit confusing even to me, but the owners of the cabin where she's staying have a relative, like a cousin or something, who's a trucker, and he crashes at this cabin usually when he's going through the area. And this is the guy. He didn't know she was going to be there. She didn't know he was going to be there. So when she gets in, she tries to attack him essentially before she finds out who he is.
Well, she doesn't try to attack him.
And she also gets high with him.
She pulls. No, I'm talking about the neighbour. That guy was the. Yeah, he says my uncle owns the cabin or whatever.
Yeah, something
No,
like that.
The guy at the beginning who is the neighbour. the guy who I don't know what he's up to.
But she attacks the cousin guy,
obvious.
so does she attack them both?
She attacks the neighbour with a blade and slashes his face, and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right.
And then she's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were a threat. And he's like, hey, no problem. Essentially. Even though she's just slashed his face with a knife. There's no, you crazy lady, you've just, slashed me here.
No,
it's
he's
just,
cool with it.
He doesn't even, he barely mentions it. He barely mentions
chill.
it. So I was right, wasn't I? That is the neighbour.
Okay, yeah.
Before you
But she also
jumped
attacks
in there.
that family
I'm aware
guy,
of that, yeah.
doesn't she? Yeah.
Well, not with a knife, though.
And not all three of them. She doesn't do it with the engineer guy, even though he does come back. But with the other two, she gets drunk and smokes pot and just generally
Yeah, she not only...
makes herself
She not only
available.
smokes pot, she hallucinates from smoking pot. And I don't know what kind of
No.
pot she's smoking.
I think that was,
They
again,
also
that
have...
must
They
have
also
been a
have...
different drug.
They
'cause
also
were
have
like,
a
which one
massive
do you want to
pot
do?
freak out. No, they're just smoking weed.
Is that really what this?
Yeah.
Because they
It
acted
seems like you
like
don't
they
remember
just
this movie at all.
took a hit of
I'm schooling
heroin
you
or
on this.
something. I thought they'd eaten mushrooms from the way they were acting.
What about Louis... I mean, this is really boring. What about Louis Guzman, right? You must have seen Louis Guzman before, and he's one of the cam girls... regular customers.
Right,
But
yeah.
we get representation in this movie because
He's a good guy.
he's just
Not that guys who use campsites are necessarily bad, but-
gold-hearted perv, and
He's barely even a perv. He just wants to talk.
he wants to talk and he wants to dance through the lens with the cam girl and things like this. Not slightly dancing, slow dancing and things. So Louis Guzman's there because, as I said, you need representation because one of her other customers, this guy doesn't even show his face, it's just a blurry screen, and he's always like, tell me you're my wife. Are you gonna make a video for me? And he gets pretty threatening now and again, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So we don't just get that threatening, cliche male cam girl users. We also get the kind-hearted ones in Louis Guzman's character. So, representation is very important these days. So it's good that they include that.
Great.
Yeah.
So as I was saying, you mentioned the other customer, not the salsa dancer one, but the one who's
Louis Guzman,
the one who's like
the mental
tape
one.
over. Yeah. And we find out that he's essentially like some aggressive psycho
Are you gonna be my wife?
weirdo. Yeah. And he's starting to really freak her out. And it's pretty obvious that we're led to believe that all the dodgy stuff happening is because of him, right?
Well, this movie's a real piece of crap. So basically, that guy who is hiding himself in the cam, it turns out it's the neighbour, and his wife has either left him or is dead, right?
No, he was pretending to be the neighbour.
No, just pretend to be. Either way, he's the neighbour.
He's not the...
whether he's
yeah,
pretending
okay.
or not. So his
And he
his
was
whole
the guy
thing,
who killed the ex in the beginning.
Yeah. All I remember at the end is that he's revealed to be the nutcase stalker,
Yeah.
even though it's completely obvious from the first second. And he's caught digging a grave by Cam Girl, and he says that he's killed a deer. He falls into the grave, and then she stupidly pulls him out of it. She takes him back to her house while she's showering or whatever, and he's making dinner, spikes her drink.
Right.
Yeah, and then he miseries her, like
Yeah,
James Caan,
she's all
Kathy
tied
Bates.
up, and see, my memory is so fuzzy for this because I switched off halfway through, but I remember her like trying to pull on the cord of like, oh, I'll be your wife, I want to marry you, so that he will release her. Trickster.
Yeah.
Psych out.
I didn't see that coming either. I've never
No,
seen that
that's
before.
never
When
happened.
someone's tied up by a psychopath and then they just, lean into everything that they want to see if they let them go or not.
I don't even remember how that storyline wraps up, but do you know what? It couldn't matter less, because during this whole storyline of the 18 and over, we've been having random, super weird flashes of a reality TV show,
Yeah.
which you mentioned is hosted by Paris Hilton.
Trap House with Paris Hilton.
And they did a great job of making that look like a real reality show, because it was crap.
They made it look like a real reality show, but even worse than reality shows look, and this is supposed to be music production. Or something else which was, just absolutely fantastic about this film was the music by G-Eazy.
G-Eazy, I wrote that down in my notes as well.
Or is it just Geezy? I don't know. He's also in the movie as one of the characters. I don't know which
so
one.
Bad.
But yeah, he's great.
And anyway, the reason then we find
Gonna
out... 'cause
crank some G-Eazy later.
there was no obvious reason as to why we're getting this one
Talent
storyline
just
and
pulls
then
out
the
the
reality show storyline. But it turns out right at the end, we go to that reality show
Producer,
house.
rapper, actor.
And it was a movie this whole time. So the reality contestants have been watching it and they're like, well, that's why I wouldn't do 18 and over. And stuff. I was, oh my god, the shittest ending to a horror movie you could ever imagine.
That also skipped my mind because there's just so much other nonsense going on in this. I was thinking like, what is the message of the movie? And what I took from it
The message
out of all of it was,
this should be good.
you know, find yourself a nice woman, marry her, then find yourself a nice cam girl with a heart of gold, and double her up as your relationship therapist, thereby keeping your relationship with your chosen spouse
Spicy.
on the straight and narrow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because, you know,
I'm glad you could find a message in this. That
cam
was-
girls are golden hearted and the users
Not
are
easily
golden hearted, and he's so ecstatic that he's back with his wife that he has to just go and tell her, and you know, he's so happy.
yeah,
Then he
and
wants to dance for her again.
He's on a call when she gets attacked, and he ends up calling the police or something for
What's
her.
your message of the movie then? That's what I've taken from it.
My message from the movie is that not all, but some people who use pornographic websites...
I've already clarified this in the representation bit.
How do I start that? Are fine? Are bad?
Not all of them are bad, I think is what you were trying to say. Yeah. Maybe that's the brainwashing media of getting to you there.
What are you saying? They're all bad?
You know, all men that masturbate are
Evil.
psychos.
Right, so...
We didn't even mention Pamela Anderson as the sheriff.
Yeah.
Is
The one bit I remember with Pammy is that the cam girl is out for a jog with her earphones in, and Pammy appears out of like the bushes somewhere and starts jogging after
with
her.
her sheriff partner.
And I mean,
This is again where
this sheriff must be super out of shape.
But she's not even
catch up
in
to
a
her for,
town.
like,
So
5
again,
minutes.
why are there 2 law officers jumping out of bushes at her? Where have they been hiding this whole time? I think this movie had like an over $1 million budget as well. It was pretty expensive.
Anyway,
So did you like it?
terrible movie. And now that I think about it, even though I promised lots of nip action, I don't think there was much nip in this. It was mostly just her in lingerie.
You'll kind of see me at the beginning of this when you mentioned that. I'm kind of was there any real action in any of these movies?
Yes, there was.
Because in
There
in
absolutely
this
was.
there was none. The camming.
Maybe I got like brain fog from the fact that it's supposed to be a cam girl thing.
I didn't know.
But yeah,
I
I guess
didn't know that
it's
camming was
lingerie.
just women who put a wig on and sit there. I didn't know that's what
Anyway.
it entailed.
I'm done talking about this movie, so I think we should move on.
I was done talking about this movie ages ago.
What was next?
Number 2. Well, we've got different number 2s and number 1s, so yeah.
Let's go with Succubus.
Succubus. This is my number 1.
Succubus.
Your number 2. Succubus from 2024 also has a Russian name which I absolutely cannot pronounce because one of the words is like TMY. How are you supposed to say that? Tmyi? Tmyi. Yeah. So Succubus. Yeah. Why is this not number 1 for you?
I do know where to begin with this one. The first thing you will notice, and that will just hound you throughout the entire movie, is the absolutely atrocious dubbing. I really think, having watched it all the way through, they probably got the Russian actors to perform in English, but then got native English speakers to come in and do the voiceovers. Because...
Well, that is what's happened because in the dubbing, they're clearly speaking English.
Yes.
And then they've dubbed them over. I've done some dubbing before, ADR. We've done some ADR. And...
But we've done it for ourselves.
And the
well.
but the result was, out of the park. This one's been done in a day. He's only done the whole movie in a day, dubbing, and The voices don't match up to the characters.
God,
There's quite a few
awful.
dramatic scenes where they raise their voice. That makes it worth watching.
It's so grating, and yeah, you can tell that these voice actors have just not prepared, not done anything, because the emotion they're giving versus the emotion the actors are giving is just not even the same. And yeah,
so it's hard to put into words how bad the dubbing is, and it takes away any credibility from the movie whatsoever, because clearly what they've done is, because this is I've got 4 words for you: Russian Kazakh titty movie. So you
go, Frank.
They've obviously gone to some length to be like, right, we're not going to speak in Russian and then dub it over in English, because that always looks stupid. So what we'll do is we'll do it in the language and dub it over anyway, and that way we'll get into the American market, the UK market, the Canadian, the Australian market. People will love it. But it didn't turn out that way. So that's probably enough about the dubbing. The dubbing is really bad. The movie is clearly, obviously about succubus, but these 4 couples are flown out into, again, the middle of a forest, it seems, the middle of nowhere, and they're met by these people in masks who've choppered them in.
This is supposed to be, by the way, some kind of like couples retreat with activities and stuff. What would you think if you turned up on some rickety old plane on some nowhere island and all the staff were there in like weird masks and cloaks, and only one of them speaks with a really annoying voice, I might add? Well,
this is why you shouldn't use modern technology to book your holidays, and always use a travel agent, so they can warn you of what's to come. People in masks pick them up. They go into this house, and the house is like alive. It talks. It can tell if you're a liar or not. Because
Robot house.
These couples are all sitting around,
so
and
dumb.
They all have varying degrees of problems in their relationships.
No, but they're sitting around, and the house can talk, we find out, because they've got like a collar on, which can detect if they're telling the truth or lying, and they absolutely have to tell the truth.
Yeah, because one of the women in a couple is asked, do you find your partner the most attractive man? And she's like, of course I do. Of
course they do.
Why would I find any other man attractive? And it was like, lie. The house comes alive and tells her she's a liar. She's not having that. So then she finally breaks, and she's like, fine, he doesn't turn me on. And he doesn't take too kindly to that. And then my other favourite one of the couples was the girl who was jealous because the guy had cheated one time. And he was like, before I met her, my life was all one big party, one big drug affair. It didn't end. And now she's changed everything. And it was a mistake one time. That's the kind of
I want to come back to that as well, because you've got some great lines about that later in the movie.
So after this, they're all then kind of... before they are thrust into the forest, where we see them all in the forest.
But we're still talking about this neck thing for a second with the house that talks.
I thought it was pretty much done.
No, I also thought it was really weird that this house that's constantly being like, lie. It also one time decided to go, truth.
Yeah.
But only the one time.
It would have been better if it was Iranu.
Ivavu. No one's going to know what we mean. So now you can move on. They're unleashed, right?
But before they're unleashed into the forest, when one of the couples are telling their problems, the guy just turns into a demon. Like, momentarily turns into a demon, and then our kind of lead girl wakes up in the forest, and we go from there. And the problem with this, so we've already got 4 couples. We've been introduced to them coming into this camp, right?
I feel like there were 5.
There
were so many.
You could well be right. Yeah, there were too many characters, and the problem was you're introduced to them. Oh, I'm so and so. She's so and so. We've been together for this long, and then they get into the forest.
There was no subtle like this is this character. It was literally sit down and tell us about yourself, like you're in school with one of those beanies you pass around.
They should have just had name tags on. The problem is, because we get so little time with these couples at the beginning, like, hey, I'm Jean. Hey, I'm Michael. I'm so and so, so and so, so and so. Then once we're into the forest, they all split up, and they're all then interacting with different members of the couples, and they're like, oh, who's that guy again? Because they're not the couple. And who's this guy now coming to talk to this girl who I thought was in that couple? And they keep flashing back as well, which is another problem.
Okay, that really confused me, because I think it might even be the opening of this, or just super early on, we see our main girl running through this like eerie forest, running away from something. Yeah,
we get a bit of an Evil Dead homage. She's running through this forest, and she's eventually comes to a place in the forest where she's all the roots and the
come
tree
out
pits,
and,
and
like,
they
drag
wrap
her
around
in.
her.
And then we go into the story.
No,
or
she
something.
sees a mirror, and she sees herself in the mirror, but it's her demonic self. And it was actually pretty good, because when she sees herself in the mirror, it's just like a kind of a dead version of her standing there. But then it was quite creepy at that point. But then they had the CGI black stuff coming out of her mouth, and it just completely took away from anything credible about the image. It just went too far.
No, I don't know. There was something about, again, the voiceover of the way she like, ah!
Yeah.
When she was running through the forest. I was already over it. I was like, this is dumb.
I wasn't noticing the dubbing straight from that point, because at the opening
Because she's not talking,
is
she's just
really
making
cool.
noise,
You just got the
isn't she?
camera over this expansive, darkening forest. The camera coming down. All the cinematography is quite nice. All the lighting is pretty nice. All of that kind of stuff. So I was actually quite impressed by the visuals. So when she then gets wrapped up by the tree, a la Evil Dead, and sees herself in the mirror, I then got instantly disappointed when I saw the black CGI coming out of her mouth, when they could have just kept it with nothing, and it would have been so much more effective. So every time we're in the forest, I quite liked it. But going back, when they leave the house and the movie starts, she finds in a little cubby, like a tree cubby, she finds like a letter and a torch, and it says, "You must find your way out, but only with your partner will you be able to escape." And every time we go to a new character, they each find the same thing, telling them that they need to find their partner to escape. But the problem is, as I've mentioned, they're not partnered up once they get into the forest, and instead it will be like the lead actress will be approached by one of the men, and she'll look into the mirror, and all of a sudden, the guy will just be cupping her tits, looking out at her,
So when
very
you said
happy
to me
with himself.
you were not saying this was Smut Week, and you were like, I don't think there was much titty. This had, she had great tits as well, by the way.
Why do you think this is my number one movie?
This had a lot of titty. So yeah, we start with the main girl with one of the other couples, but she looks at the reflection, and he's behind her, but she can only see this naked nip close up on the tit.
Eternal.
Tit grab.
Just looking at the front cover, looking at...
I wasn't done.
But you're really going on a lot. It's
going on about titty.
Yeah, and I'm continuing in that trend, and this is exactly why Succubus is number one for me, because it promised. It has now set the tone, set the standard for Russian Kazakh co-productions going forward. If I see those movies now, I'm going to expect a certain amount of bosom. And Eternal promised bosom with the way that it was presented to me, and had very little.
Well, we're not there yet. We're still talking about this one. So yeah, that's the first real titty action we get. But don't worry, viewers.
It was either very
There's
cold,
lots of temptation.
or they had a very professional fluffer on set, because those nips were hard.
I'm sure it was freezing cold.
Yeah, so that actor guy was certainly enjoying his job at this point, because it's not just like a brief titty moment. It's let's just keep.
She wasn't
Just
dressed
keep coddling these
very,
boobies.
you couldn't necessarily tell. So when they finally get this reflection of her with the tits, I was like, wow, she was hiding some great stuff under that.
Titties save the day in this movie. At the end, the titties defeat the succubus.
She, at this point, the character, she says to the guy who's come up to her to replicate what's going on in the reflection, she says, no, we can't do this. You're not my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of like in the safe. But then the guy that she was just talking to, I swear he's the one who we then go to next to see him wake up before he goes to find his torch and letter.
Yeah, probably.
So
there are too many people to keep track. And they all look the same in the dark. They all got the same haircut.
yeah. Oh, and our first person to get like some sort of weird injury, by the way, is the girl who said that, of course I find him the most attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, he doesn't turn me on anymore. Is that what you want? She gets like some weird, it looks like some kind of poison infection. And we later see that whilst they're all in this forest split up, she was approached by one of the other couple's guys, and she gave in to it. So he like flips her around and does her up against the fence, and then turns around again and pushes her, and she lands on a spike, and it started to get like all infected and weird. And he and her, like, no. Yeah, and then the boyfriend and her, right, so it was her boyfriend.
I'm so confused.
Wasn't it her boyfriend who had the ridiculously low voiceover voice?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, and they have like an argument, and he goes all mental on her. And
Yeah, is that when they're in the bedroom?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
She's like,
yeah.
I'm not feeling well, and he gets all like,
Yeah. Michael the nerd.
He was, most of them were kind of dickheads.
Yeah, but this has all been just a challenge. Everything that we've seen at the beginning.
Yeah, so they end up back at the house.
Yeah, back at this little chalet
the hotel
thing, and the masked people are waiting for them, saying, "Oh, this is just a challenge," because everybody wants to leave, and she convinces them it's some kind of challenge.
Yes, you're
and
right.
then we go from here. Well, that's what when we learn. It's like some kind of like relationship camp.
Someone's gone missing at this point,
Yeah.
and they're all like, "I don't like what's going on here," and then they're
Isn't the whole reason that they're there because one of the characters' sisters disappeared in this forest earlier?
But we find this out way later, and that's only just tied something into me that didn't make sense before, which I'll get to. But yeah, at this point, when they're all standing there having done their first task, and someone's gone missing, and they're all like, "Oh, I want to go home," and then the masked person who leads the whole thing is like, "Well, you didn't come here for an easy ride, did you? But if you want to leave, just have to say so." And not a single one of them is like, "Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Let's probably get off this weird-ass island."
I recall the guy who was like, "Yeah, before I met her, it was all party, party, party."
He's going after our main girl.
They have a flashback of their relationship just after he's cheated, and they're going to bed, and he makes a move to get some bedtime action. She's like, "No, I can't," and he's like, "When are you just gonna let this go? It's only been like 3 weeks." Yes, it's already been 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Since I stooped some other woman, when are you going to forgive me?
That wasn't a flashback. That was happening in the hotel between these tasks.
Yeah, well, it's not clear.
Yes, because this is another moment of lots of titty action. Everyone take note. Because this is the couple, they're in their chalet, and he's like, "Oh, but it's already been like a month since I cheated on you. When are you going to let me fuck you again?" She's like, "I can't." But then within 2 seconds, he sweet-talked her.
Yeah, he's put out a very sincere apology.
And he's doing her from behind, and again there's a big mirror. And he, by the way, who I just said is going after our leading lady, who's not his girlfriend, he's fucking his girlfriend, and suddenly the leading lady is there as well, behind him, like naked and writhing and getting in on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
she freaks out.
His girlfriend sees a split second of it and is like, "What were you looking at?" He's like, "Just you, baby." And then we see the main girl outside their room in the window for a second. So she's everywhere.
Yeah, I've written down threesome ghost.
Threesome, yeah.
Yeah. Then we get the Nick's jealousy overdub performance. So Nick is jealous in his relationship, and his overdub performance really gets that through, really shines through. He has a bad neck, and I've got Nick is watching. Or Jean is watching herself fuck Javier. Remember Javier gone missing?
I don't know, but yes,
Javier's recruited,
that's another
isn't he?
sex scene when I think they're just out in the forest on the floor, aren't they? And he's just going at her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
she watches it.
Well, then of course, Nick shouting for Kate with awful overdubs. So there's many overdub situations where anyone raises their voice, it's worth seeing. Because they'll get loud overdub and then some quick titty and then back to some overdub.
The other thing with the sound in this, not even just the ADR, was that the sound mixing was so weird. It was like so loud with the voices. It didn't match. There was no like background noise added to it or anything. It was bizarre. I wanted to quickly go back actually because I've just criticised the sound again. That when you mentioned in the beginning of this, you thought there was some good cinematography and lighting and whatnot. I actually, throughout the film, tried to ignore how awful the like voices were.
Mm-hmm. That's impossible.
And I actually agree. I think cinematography and lighting in this were overall pretty good, actually. I thought it looked really nice.
Really good.
But the sound and the certain bits of the dialogue from the script were just ruined.
Another thing that I really liked was, and bear with me, the actual succubus. So you've got a practical effect, and when you see it built and it's still, it's fine. But then it comes out of the darkness and starts to move, and it just looks really stupid. But they had a nice model of a succubus there until they decided to animate it and things like that. And yeah, you've gone about the breasts in this. When the succubus comes at the end, it's literally breasts that defeat the succubus, because she's the woman just walks into the place where all the action's happening, strips off, kisses the man, who is the fake man.
Right. Okay.
And then fake man dies, and succubus also then dies.
You guys must be so bloody confused. Yeah, it turns out that these people have been lured here for this couples retreat, but actually the masked hosts are a cult who worship this demon succubus thing that obviously wants prey. And the way it gets the prey is if you give in to temptation. So all these people we've seen fucking each other's partners, they've all slowly been, like, taken in by this cult.
It's kind of hard to believe that there were technical issues with the sound and things like this, considering that it's had a budget of 139,725,000 Russian rubles. So I don't know what that equates to in US dollars, but it made 160,000 US dollars. So what is 139 million rubles compared to $160,000, I wonder?
And also, I bet half the budget went on the terrible native English dubbing.
I reckon it went on breasts, because there were varying degrees, big ones, small ones,
a lot of breasts,
bee sting ones,
and just
all
so
beautiful.
There's a lot of
and there's a time and a place
in a forest
for
breasts out
in a horror movie, and succubus is certainly one of them. Any movie called Succubus, this is what you expect.
Okay,
and they delivered.
So that was one part of the reveal of why this movie's happening, and then the other part you mentioned earlier, which is that our main girl is actually there to look for her sister who recently went missing there.
Yeah.
And then we find out, twist on twist on twist, that actually this whole time it's the other sister that's been missing, and this main girl, who's a twin with her sister, by the way, it's very important, took her sister's boyfriend because he mistook her for her sister. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I also, one of the characters is from like 1899 or something like that. That's another twist, another reveal.
What?
Yeah, Michael on Bed with Thorns. Jean is from 1899.
Yeah. She's the leader of this
masked cult
thing, isn't she?
She's recruited Javier, one of the couples. Well, she's one of the couples. Jean and Javier are one of the couples, aren't they?
But you've just skimmed over what I just said, which is that these twin sisters, the sister who was not in the relationship, just let the boyfriend of her sister come onto her and then pretended to be the girlfriend for the next 2 months.
I've watched this movie one time. I've got some notes which are all clogged together because there's too many characters and just things happening left, right, and centre. You're kind of explaining it to me, and I'm just confused. I'm just confused.
Yeah. So yeah, it was actually the original girlfriend who went missing, but the boyfriend's been with the sister this whole time, thinking it was the same woman, and this current sister who's gone to find the other twin sister, she sneaks up on the cult when they're doing some ritual thing, and this is when we see the succubus. Yeah, it takes the form of some kind of tree thing,
like Lord
takes
of the Rings.
your body, spews out a doppelganger.
Yeah, it does. Oh yeah, doppelganger.
Spews out the doppelganger.
A dirty doppelganger.
That's the evil
filthy
version, and then it does something to you to kill you, I think. But yeah, so all these people on the island are there are people who've fallen into temptation and they're doppelganging. And what you were saying about her having to get her tits out and snog the other dude again, that's because the couple who were, the cheating couple who had the threesome with her and her, I think, are the only ones left at this point. And they set out to lure this demon out. Oh yeah, that was good. Because the twin sister who was originally there wrote in her notes all about she came here to study the cult. So she knows how to defeat it, but she obviously got foiled before she could do it. So they're we need to draw the devil out, and he's drawn to sin, us giving into temptation. So for this to happen, the two who are not in a relationship need to get sensual. And for this to happen as well, the girl who was cheated on, she's like, I'll make this easier. I'll go and hide in a bush somewhere. So she goes off into this haunted dark forest on her own for ages, and lo and behold, she gets attacked. It's alright, she survives. She's a good girl. You don't seem like you remember any of this.
No, I remember all of this, but it's just... The story is just basically 5 couples go to the middle of a forest with some weird masked people, and then have hallucinations of the other members of the couple trying to get off with them.
Yeah.
And then everyone shows their tits, which is fantastic, and enough to defeat the succubus at the end. And there's some nice cinematography, and that's pretty much about it, and some absolutely terrible ADR, because like I said, the story's like here, this person, this person, this person. So I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, so I guess moving on to...
This isn't the first movie that's been ruined by dubbing either. You know, because you can't tell if the performances are any good or not.
Yeah, that is fair. I did see a comment on IMDb, people being like, oh, the performances are so awful. And I was like, it's really hard to tell because you can't hear their voices. And with these fake voices on top, of course, it just looks like, what the hell is going on? But I would say they looked like they were doing a much better job than the voices sounded.
I feel like they'd really thought about titty in line with what kind of movie this is as well. It's not just like titty for titty's sake, which I've complained about before on this show. If you can believe it or not, like, it shouldn't have been a sex scene, shouldn't have been any skin in this movie. Didn't fit. For this though, you need skin to take you away from everything else, which is just a waste of 139 million Russian rubles.
Next up, Eternal.
Eternal, and I've got 3 words for you. Canadian sex thriller.
I have more words than that about this movie.
Canadian sex thriller from 2004.
And it also opens up with the whole, based on true
This is based on true events.
Which, to be fair, I guess it is.
This is non-fiction.
This is yes, that's not true.
This is non-fiction.
Absolutely fiction.
It's based on true events.
But
it clearly states it at the beginning of the movie, based on true events.
And it's based on a character which, she's been used in a lot of things,
Elizabeth
hasn't she?
Báthory. Yeah, that crazy Hungarian loon.
Yeah, who apparently, according to legend, bathed in the blood of virgins to keep herself young, or something along those lines. Obviously,
and here she is
didn't work.
in the year 2004.
In this movie, it did work.
In Eternal, Canadian sex thriller. So this is what got Canadians jollies off, at least in 2004. And that's important to know. Who's your favourite Canadian?
I don't know. I want to talk about this movie, though.
I'm going to say like Sebastian Bach, Rush, Celine Dion. So if in 2004, if you had sat Sebastian Bach and Celine Dion in the same room, they're probably, and watching Eternal, they're coming out with Back Dion babies, because this is what sets the Canadian libido alight. Eternal.
Yeah. Well, we do get quite a lot of girl-on-girl action in this. So if that's your bag, baby,
look,
will enjoy it.
Don't get too excited by girl-on-girl action, all right? Because it opens with this girl-on-girl action.
Yeah, I didn't get it. Was this young girl who turned up to this mansion, was she an escort, or was this supposed to be a date?
No. This is the whole point of the story. This is Detective Ray's wife.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So she's just out looking to get her jollies off without Detective Ray knowing.
So it was just a date.
I wouldn't exactly call it a date. Detective Ray's,
it's a hookup.
Wife has been talking over, AOL or whatever, at AOL.com, MySpace chat rooms to Erzabet. And Erzabet just lures in women who want to have sex with other women, aka her, and she's just there to cheat on her husband. So she goes into when we arrive outside Erzabet's house.
I thought Erzabet
that's really
was
cool.
Pretty fine. She's a little bit older, but I did think she was
suits the character.
Very beautiful.
Yeah, so
and alluring.
Detective Ray's wife goes into Erzabet's, and Erzabet is questioning her, like, "Have you done this before?" And Ray's wife is like, "Well, I experimented in college." So Erzabet likes that. Actually, no, Erzabet first asks her if she's done this. And Detective Ray's wife, says, "No, I've never been with women before." But of course, Erzabet knows, "You're lying. I know you've been with women before." And that's when she confesses that she experimented in college. So then they start getting down to it. And by getting down to it, I mean, Erzabet sits on her lap and then pulls out a finger knife, punctures her in the neck.
You've missed the most important part of that moment. She's not just sitting on her lap. She's, giving her the old...
There's no skin, and it's not that
But it's
obvious.
Pretty obvious.
No.
I thought so, because I wrote down she's getting fingered while she gets stabbed in the neck.
But even then, that would have lasted for 1 second, so don't get too excited.
Okay, so yeah. There's so many plot holes in this.
Well, hang on. Straight after this, hot, steamy Canadian scene, it's in another steamy Canadian scene where we see Detective Ray, our lead, and he's seeing what I thought at the time was a prostitute, but it turns out it's his, because he's a detective, it's his partner's wife, and she's riding him, but she's wearing her underwear, so she's not really riding him, she's just strangling him. But then he has to take a work call, so
and she pulls out a gun and stuff.
Fun has to end,
kinky sex.
What I liked about Detective Ray is Eternal took place over the space of a week, but he always has, a 3-day growth on it. So his beard just stops growing, and that's it. It doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't shave. He just constantly has a 3-day stubble on him.
This guy, my God, okay.
Detective Ray.
I found just everything about him very annoying, but what really irked me...
He was pretty smart detective.
So he finds out sort of, where his wife has supposedly been last, and he goes to visit Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And he's all, like, up in arms about, like, what do you mean she came here to have sex with you? My wife? And I was like, we've literally just seen you, like, doing kinky sex with your partner's wife. I mean... What a scumbag, and he has the gall to be annoyed that she wants to go and experiment with some pussy.
Did you sleep with my wife?
It's unbelievable.
Did you?
I did like one line that Elizabeth says, though, when she says to him, "Oh, detective, I hope you found your wife. I would like to see her again."
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you naughty minx. Of course you want to see her again. Ray didn't like that. I thought it was very sexy.
Now you've missed out the most important part.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Mm-hmm. Enlighten me.
So, let's just quickly recap, right? We've got Elizabeth stabbing the college experimentation girl in the neck. Then we get this asphyxiation scene. Then a girl pisses in a bush.
What?
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all.
It's just a quick bush pissing scene. And I know we brought it up previously.
This is Smut Week, so...
But you had, as an actress, an audition where you had to piss in a bush.
Piss in bush.
And I was on the other end, reading your lines.
It's not like I actually pissed in a bush. I wasn't even outside.
I hope not, because
I wasn't pissing
in my music room. But you did. You went method though, because you squat.
Yeah.
You squat, and then you're talking to me in like a northern accent. Oh, I'm Gilly. I'm a fishmonger, and I take a piss in bush.
Yeah.
I really want to know still what movie was this? Secondly, who got the role? And 3, did she knock it out of the park like in your audition?
I don't know.
So I really believe that you were pissing in that bush.
Yeah, I take it very seriously. I go method all the way, except for the actual
So
urination.
Clearly not the only movie where they have women relieving themselves in the bushes.
I still don't remember anyone pissing in a bush in this, but...
Believe me, it happened.
I do remember we get a scene... where Ray's still looking for his wife.
When Ray is looking for his wife and he goes and questions Elizabeth.
Yes, when she says her delicious line.
And even before then, when she's coming on to his wife, she has like this assistant who's almost like her
just some
Igor
random
or whatever.
Young girl who shows up.
Irina shows up.
This was so bizarre as well.
Yeah, she's like Elizabeth's assistant, so she's training to be a vampire.
Yeah, but this is the other thing. So I was going to ask you because. You changed the subject, but one of the plot holes for this was I didn't understand with that first death of Ray's wife. Elizabeth, stabs her in the neck and then drinks her blood straight from the neck.
As a vampire would.
And as a vampire would, which is not what she was supposed to be, I don't think. And then this other one, Irina or whatever she's called, she's like, when will you let me have my first? As if, again, she's like the vampire acolyte who wants to be turned. I was like, that makes no sense.
And because she hasn't been turned,
makes no sense.
She's fashioned her own sharp teeth.
Yeah, disgusting. And she lures young men with dirty
minds. Now look,
while
I keep calling him Detective Ray, but I'm pretty sure he's Officer Ray. Obviously has a partner, but I keep calling him Detective because...
He's in Vice, and he doesn't know how to use a computer, by the way. His babysitter has to show him how.
Yeah, which is exactly what I was about to bring up. He then ropes in his babysitter to solve the mystery of what has happened to his wife.
There was a character as well, by the way.
And when he's gone to go and see the babysitter, and he's sitting on a computer, and he's like, hey, can you help me get online? And she's like, oh my God, what do you do when you're in the office? Like, I have other nerds with glasses like you to help me out.
This guy is such a twat. He's so annoying. Oh my gosh. Yeah, she's very handy. She helps him with the computer She and a female friend who's very attractive are mechanics. Do you remember that? She babysits, and she has a crush on Ray. All of this.
And still, at this point, we've seen no titty. There's no skin in this movie. But
there's a lot of
as we previously mentioned,
women,
Officer Ray is having an affair with his partner, his colleague's wife. After we've seen his colleague's wife riding him, the next scene we see them together, he's gone round to his partner's house while she's there, and they're watching a game of baseball or something. Officer Ray goes to the bathroom, and while he's there, he's whipped his thing out. He's about to take a whiz, and out pops Nancy, I believe her name is, the woman who's having an affair with, and she just starts touching his willy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, don't stop." I'm like, you're either going to be whizzing or ejaculating, because you can't do both at the same time. Now, if a woman came and grabbed my penis mid-whiz, I'd be like, "Hang on a minute, let me finish up here first." I wouldn't be like, "Oh yeah, don't stop."
And again,
what a freak!
What a scumbag! Because he's like, "Oh, we can't, not in his house."
Yeah, not in his house.
But that doesn't stop him.
We'll do a bit of asphyxiation anywhere, but just not in his house.
Whilst he's still looking for his wife. Oh, and she's like,
he's not very upset about his wife dying, is he?
Well, he doesn't know where she is. Doesn't know she's dead.
Or just her disappearing, basically. He even goes on a jolly to Venice at some point, doesn't he? Because that Italian detective.
Yeah, so we find out that like some detectives from Rome have been tracking Elizabeth and stuff, and so they get involved. This bloody Italian accent on the Italian detective.
I come from Rome.
Do you know what it reminds me of, actually? In the TV show Impractical Jokers, you know, they get that random guy that like Sal hates because he gets everything wrong.
Yeah. Rob Emma.
If he did an Italian accent, this is what I imagine it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible.
Yeah. We also say that Elizabeth is pissed off at Irina because it's Irina that sets up the meeting between her and Ray's wife.
Yeah, she reels in the bait for Elizabeth.
Yeah, because when Elizabeth finds out that, this is the wife of a cop, she then slaps Irina and is like, "The wife of a cop? You've got me in trouble." I'm thinking, you're supposed to be like an all-powerful, being who's been around for thousands of years, and you're worried about some rubbish detective.
Yeah, but
so then she goes to she has this lawyer, remember?
Yes.
And she threatens her lawyer because the lawyer has also been visited by Detective Ray, and he spilt the beans a little bit somewhat about who Elizabeth is. Elizabeth's not pleased about this, so then she, kind of suggestively asks the lawyer, "Your daughter, isn't she a virgin?"
Yeah,
Canadian sex thriller.
Can I go back again? More plot holes, because she says, the whole story is that she's supposed to bathe in blood to stay young. This doesn't make her a vampire, for one thing, with some weird powers.
Well, Elizabeth Bathory's story is a vampiric origin.
Okay. Second of all, you just said it. It's supposed to be the blood of virgins. But like Ray's wife is not a virgin, so how does that work?
She experimented in college, so we know that she's not a virgin.
And she's Ray's wife, so
even if Ray didn't have his way with her, we know that she experimented in college, so she's not a virgin.
She's not a virgin.
No.
Half of the girls they seem to lure are not virgins, and there was another thing. Oh yeah, Elizabeth also reveals at one point.
She's also called Elizabeth. Elizabeth Elizabeth. Call her what you want.
It's her online name, I think. Elizabeth. Anyway, she, while explaining to Irina, is saying something about how the victims have to want you for you to take their like youth or whatever it is, and that's why she does the fingering and whatnot. But this also falls through like the cracks later on, because they definitely, especially Irina, when Irina's like trying to do it by herself, that person's not into it. She's just like offing them for nothing. Pointless.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the babysitter was called Lisa. And there's a bit where Irina kills Lisa with a spanner. So that's good. Spanner to the head.
Oh, I remember Lisa as well. After she's finished babysitting, I was so confused about who this character was at first, because she's at his house when he gets home, and then she's like, "Hey, after dinner, do you two want to come over and watch a movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, how often does the dad and son go to the babysitter's house to watch a movie in the evening. Is that like a common thing? I found that bizarre.
I also want to get back to the Italian detective, the gruff, the grizzled Italian detective, who's played by a Scotsman. So that might explain the accent somewhat. The grizzled Italian detective, I believe that he suspects Ray of disappearing his own wife. So Ray is interrogated. He's interrogated by somebody, and I'm just going to say it's the Italian detective at this point, right? And because
the Scottish Italian.
Ray's skin has been found under the nails of his partner's wife, and also it's been alluded that he's had sex with her, because the Italian detective goes, "How do your semen get out of your dick into your babysitter's body?"
Okay, this is it. So Elizabeth, to manage the fact that the cop Ray is after her, is trying to lay traps so that he's implicated in crime. So that's it. Again, how did she get those like samples unless she's supernatural?
She's got ear in her. She's got ear in her to do her dirty work as well. And when she's killing people with spanners,
it's very strange.
She's fashioning her own teeth. There's anything she can't do. So the lawyer's name of Renault was Renault.
Yeah, that was it.
Right, and Renault after this interrogation, the semen interrogation, has now let slip more information about Elizabeth, because she's cleared off at this point because she can't stand the heat that's on her. And Renault lets Officer Ray know that she's cleared off. She's got a second property in Venice.
Right.
So then we get a bunch of shots that the Venice Board of Tourism would be quite proud of. And it's pretty much Ray lording it on a speedboat, sipping coffee in a piazza, talking to the waitresses. He's just on a jolly.
Yeah.
His wife's
have you seen
missing.
my wife?
He's supposed to be there on official business. Yeah, he's having an espresso in the sun, reading the paper.
Yeah, he's having a
La
good
Gazzetta.
time in Venice.
Yeah.
Who cares about your wife?
God, he's eating cookies as well. He's got time for a cookie when your wife's missing. Yeah.
Delicioso.
So Venice. So that, I mean, at that point, if it hadn't already kind of just fallen apart anyway because of how inept Officer Ray is, by the way. I mean, don't you like how realistic it is that he would have done everything that he does in this movie in real life to get to the bottom of it? Like, not informing his colleagues, for one thing. Or
he's just an idiot.
Or anything called like a search warrant.
He's a scumbag idiot.
He is kind of moronic. I don't think he's supposed to be moronic.
No,
though.
I think he's supposed to be cool.
attractive, suave, and like throwaway alpha.
Just everything about him was the opposite.
Then when he gets to Venice, the whole thing tries to go eyes wide shut, as I'd call it, because he joins this masquerade ball party. And he's infiltrated the party, much like Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut. And they're all figures walking around these masks, and he's hidden himself. And just, again, getting onto how stupid he is, he walks up to someone in a mask, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen my partner?" And it's clear to her that he's not from here, because you're not supposed to come to this party with anybody else. So she's like, outed him, and he's like, "You got me. You got me." Even though I outed myself by asking stupid questions.
What an idiot.
In this place where I'm not supposed to be, full of weirdos.
The main thing that I remember from this, and it was one of the more visual aspects, apart from, as you said, the beautiful Venice ad, we finally get to see Elizabeth's bath for blood in this Venetian mansion of hers, and it's quite a sight to behold.
Yeah, I've called it Marble Lady Leg Spread Bathtub.
Right. And basically, one by one, these women are brought up from the party, stripped naked, and then they kneel down at the edge of the bath and fold over it, sort of inward.
It's a sacrificial
And there was a lot of, like,
tub.
if it's legs, I thought it was breasts for a second, because I swear there's scenes of them, like, groping this tub shape.
You might be right.
Might be both. But yeah, so we end up, slowly Irene is bringing up these women, and they're just...
Irina.
Laying
doing
around
an intern job to
in
the
a
best of her
very
ability.
Interesting position.
One day she'll make vampire. One day she'll make vampire. She brings enough sacrifices. She'll get there.
And also, I don't really remember much about the ending, except
Well, they get there, and now Italian detective is not just a detective, is he? He's a holy man. He's part of the Catholic Church.
He's Italian.
He's part of the Catholic Church, and he has captured Elizabeth and locked her away. So the Catholic Church has locked Elizabeth away.
But what about the bit when she like makes all those women for the tub bleed?
Yeah.
Detective Ray then like come in and scupper it?
Yeah, I think
Is that before
so.
she gets taken away?
Well, the
Must be.
Italian detective shows up when Ray is in a sacrifice chamber, and Ray is saved.
Okay.
Yeah, so Scottish-Italian detective priest rescues Detective Ray, and then he goes to a church to see a monk who's some unorthodox monk. Remember that?
No.
The unorthodox monk. And then because he has like a whole conversation with him, he's like, ba 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 ba, father, detective, whatever you are. And then he sees Elizabeth like Hannibal Lecter locked away in this cell, and she's still really peeved about her dog dying. That's what the whole movie's about, is that Elizabeth loves her dog so much, and that Ray's wife is living on inside her. Yeah.
She took her youth from
And
her apparently virginal body.
And when Detective Holy Man, Italian guy, takes Ray to go and see Elizabeth in this chamber and jail cell, he also says to him, you know, don't take any offerings from her. And then after about 1 minute, she offers him some wine. He's like,
Yeah. Yeah, she does that to him a few times in this movie from the very beginning. She'll like ask or give him or tell him to do something, and he's like, no, I don't think I will. She's like, be polite, and he's like, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So she gives him this wine.
What an idiot.
So he's been pursuing her, thinking that she's the one that captured his wife. But then she's like, save me, and he's like, okay, maybe. And she says, people have done stranger things for love. And then we get some soft French music outro.
Doesn't he like take her from behind roughly as well?
Yes, roughly against the
pushes
jail
her
cell.
up against the wall and
yeah,
takes
again,
her.
no skin, but he does
So
take her
bizarre.
roughly because he now has been told by Elizabeth that his wife lives on inside her. So of course he has to get down to it right away.
No, he's just fallen for her through all this time because she's a hottie.
So this is what jazzes Canadians in the year 2000.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure all Canadians agree that this is the best.
This is the only Canadian sex thriller I know. And what I did like about this movie, it has a very, late night cable Cinemax aesthetic to it. But the problem is it's completely lacking in any skin. We get to see one pair of breasts. And in Smut Week, I expect to see a lot more than just one pair. And that's where Succubus trumped Eternal completely.
So it wasn't such a difficult decision for you after all.
As I said, I liked what Eternal was going for, and I liked how stupid everything was, like, recruiting your babysitter to help you find your missing wife, even though you're supposed to be some grizzled detective. Things like that. And what about the confrontation when his partner finds out that when Ray's been having sex with his wife, and he's like, how could you? How could you?
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't mean it. Come on, man, we all make mistakes.
Just such a weird
And then he's
film.
like, don't do it, man, it's not worth it. Dramatic. This brings the drama. Yeah.
So yeah, to wrap this up.
And scene.
I hope you enjoyed your dedicated episode, Frank.
No, but you've done him dirty because there's apart from Succubus, there's not a lot in it. There's a lot that's suggested in Eternal.
All right, we'll skip the other two and just watch Succubus then.
That's about like the fourth time that you've done that, by the way. Is this your thing on the show now? That's what you're known for. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of it.
Well, get over it because it's happening.
So for me, it's Kazakh Russian sex horror, and for you, it's Canadian sex thriller. That's what I've learned this week.
And that sums it up.
Yeah. I also thought about, what if you put Rush and Celine Dion in the same room? I wonder what happened then if they was watching the because there's 3 members of Rush. It's not just then Sebastian Bach and Celine Dion. Bryan Adams. How about Dick Solomon from Third from Sun? Turns out that Dick Solomon and the Solomons are Canadian, remember? Mm-hmm. Yes, that's another favourite Canadian. Are there any others? I don't know.
I think we should probably wrap this up at that. What, you don't love Elon Musk?
He's not Canadian.
Isn't he?
No, he's not. He's from South Africa.
Oh, yeah.